are listening to episode 165 of Mitolife Radio. I'm your host, Matt Blackburn, and today I'm interviewing Robert Slovak and Victor Sagalovsky of Lightwater. They make deuterium depleted water that is the lowest parts per million of any other brand providing this kind of product in the world. They make 5 and 10 parts per million deuterium depleted water. The average around the world is 150, and it's lower up in the Antarctic region. But this is something that accumulates in our body over time. And as the creator of the CLF protocol, calcification, lipofuscin, and fibrosis, I really think it's these slow death by 1,000 cut accumulations that ends up taking people down, and that is the primary cause of aging. I used to think that this whole subject was a scam until I found a product marketed for dogs with cancer, because deuterium depletion has anti-tumor effects, anti-cancer effects. And that really started to spin my wheels and get me interested in looking into the subject. And I don't think it's a magic bullet, but I think it's a really useful tool to use in combination with systemic enzyme therapy if I had those issues, and other modalities I believe could really knock things out much faster than we believe. So I'll let the experts explain it. And if you're new to deuterium, this is a really good crash course in it. It's a fascinating rabbit hole, as if we already don't have enough things to think about with health. But if you enjoy rabbit holes and you're interested in water, and especially if you've listened to other podcasts on deuterium, I really focused on making this one unique and asking them different questions than they've ever been asked in any other show about deuterium. So here they are, Robert Slovak and Victor Sagalovsky. All right, we're here with Robert Slovak and Victor Sagalovsky. Welcome to the show, guys.
Hey, man.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this one. You guys started a company called Lightwater. It's deuterium depleted water. And this is a big rabbit hole that I started going down maybe 6 months ago. And it's really fascinating. A lot of people have studied water for years and have never heard of deuterium. And I kind of thought it was just a marketing thing at first and almost like a conspiracy. But then I found the patented product that was used for, I think, for dogs with cancer. So this is a really legitimate science, right?
It is. It goes back almost 70 years. And the science is not so much about the water; it's about what happens when you deplete deuterium in the body. But water is the way to do it. So this is a profound discovery. That discovery is that when you reduce your deuterium levels by 15 to 20%, amazing things happen physiologically, specifically for your mitochondrial well-being.
And deuterium has a really broad scope of application. The first one that really got everybody's attention was you use it to make nuclear reactors and atomic bombs, okay? Let's get that straight. So that captivated everyone at the beginning. And nowadays, it's actually used in a certain class of deuterated pharmaceuticals to slow down their toxicity, so to speak. Okay?
So what happens is deuterium slows things down, and the subtraction of it, removal of it, speeds things up. So when it comes to mitochondrial health and metabolism, you don't want to slow down.
Yeah, that was the fascinating part to me, was the hydrogen bomb, right? That's like concentrated deuterium is what makes a nuclear bomb. Is that
No,
accurate?
no, not the hydrogen bomb, the atomic bomb.
Oh, the atomic bomb. Okay.
Fissionable, not the fusionable.
It acts as a neutron moderator, actually. So
Yeah.
if you were to have a glass of pure water, which is H2O, most people assume water is H2O, and that I think everybody went through that class. So we know water is H2O, but water really isn't H2O. There's a lot of isotopes in there. So some water is HDO, that D being deuterium. So that deuterium is just a heavier form of a simple hydrogen. And so it also bonds with water. So you have these HDO molecules. And that's in our company, that's what we remove. We'll remove 94 to 97% of it. So your metabolic process and your mitochondria have a chance to have a longer life. This is a geroprotective product, and it's a geroprotective lifestyle. And in a glass of water, you may have 6 drops of this HDO. Now, if you have pure D2O, it doesn't occur very much in nature. Like you have both hydrogens replaced with deuterium, so that's called heavy water. And this heavy water was used as a neutron moderator because it's so rich in neutrons, whereas pure H2O doesn't have any neutrons. Protein version of hydrogen doesn't have any neutrons. This is where the difference comes between why deuterium is bad and regular hydrogen, which is protein, is good. So that neutron moderator is what allowed this fission process to occur better, or even occur at all. Robert knows a lot more than that. Rockets. But that's where it came. That's where deuterium was discovered. Before the 30s, they didn't know that hydrogen had a cousin. There were 3 isotopes, and once they discovered this ushered in the atomic age. And the atomic age was first of all it was the awareness of deuterium, and then the use of it, and then later and up until now, we've come to find out that the removal of it or the lowering of it in our bodies is actually quite beneficial to our physiology. Actually, more of it we have in our bodies, less healthy we are, and so forth. But we can go into the science, right?
Well, one thing that's fun to know, I like fun science for people because generally Americans aren't that well educated in science, but since 74% of the mass of the entire universe is hydrogen, okay, there's a lot of hydrogen and its isotopes floating around out there. So it gets into a lot of functions in everything from inanimate objects to biological life.
Yeah, I've listened to.
Especially since we're 90.
Oh, go ahead, Victor. I'm sorry.
No, I said, most people believe we're like 75% water, but as Robert told me one day, we're like, technically by molecular weight, we're north of 98%, right, Robert?
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. So we are. I mean, we're truly just water beings.
So you have a lot more deuterium than meets the eye because you got so much water.
Wow. And I've seen you guys talk about the spinning nanomotor, the ATPase, to make energy, and deuterium kind of gums that up and slows down that energy production process. But it kind of screws up the whole mitochondria, right? Not just the ATPase.
Well, the mitochondria is trying to prevent the deuterium from entering the electron transport chain, because once it's in the electron transport chain, it's going to find its way into the motor, and that motor it's not mechanically engineered to accept that deuterium or deuteron at that point. So what happens is it causes that motor to stutter while it's creating ATP. No ATP is produced in that moment that it gets deuterium. It's like putting a square peg in a round hole. And that creates wear and tear, that kind of torquing. This motor spins so fast, up to 9,000 RPM, creates torquing, which eventually creates a wear and tear where the membrane holding that motor in place, creating that proton gradient, actually gets compromised, and you get proton leakage. once you get proton leakage that can't be repaired, it's not too long after that entire factory shuts down. All those cells become unemployed. So eventually, you have less mitochondria in that cell than before because of this problem. Once you have a proton leakage, then those motors don't spin. It's only a matter of time before those motors stop spinning. So with the amount of deuterium that we have on our planet right now, we can safely say that every 7 seconds, your ATP synthase nanomotor is impinged upon or acted upon by something that it clearly does not want to be there, and tries very or has processes in place, very complex processes in the Krebs cycle and other ways of hydrogen exchange, keep that heavier hydrogen out of its most intimate confines of energy production.
And now it's being learned that the process that you referred to as, I'm not sure who said it, gums things up, is actually quite pervasive as a result of deuterium in the body, not just in the mitochondria. I mean, it works on enzyme systems, metabolic systems. I mean, many things are influenced by deuterium.
And yeah, and if I could offer kind of a theoretical reason for that, and is because, well, two things. Simple thing we know in science called kinetic isotope exchange, right? So effect, sorry, exchange. The effect creates the exchange. Yeah. So the kinetic isotope effect. If you have a regular hydrogen, which is protium attached to a carbon, versus a deuterium attached to a carbon, that deuterium carbon bond is 9 times slower to dissociate. So that there's showing you, hey, it slows everything down. This is why Robert said this is used in a new class of drugs. If you want to make drugs even more powerful, you want to slow down their metabolism. They have deuterium, so it slows everything down. And the other piece of this, the more important piece, and this piece is to me is something so profound. We break the law of physics to exist through quantum tunneling, right? We like the path of least resistance, and so everything in nature depends on this little cheat called quantum tunneling. And whereas protium, because it's so simple, it doesn't have a neutron. It's probably the biggest particle that quantum tunnels. So, and if it couldn't do that, we wouldn't be alive. So we have to break the laws of thermodynamics and physics to actually even exist in the quantum state. But deuterium doesn't quantum tunnel the same. It's heavier, so it doesn't go through the mountain. It has to go over the hill. And that going through the mountain phenomenon is little understood, if at all, because it's cheating. But if we didn't do that, then we wouldn't exist. So deuterium is a heavier isotope, so it doesn't have that elegant way of movement through everything. So, and hydrogen does, protium does. So this is something that's very little literature on this exists, but I clued into quantum tunneling aspect. I just looked at what's the difference between protium and deuterium in terms of their quantum tunneling nature. You see, deuterium almost does not quantum tunnel at all. And of course, every element after hydrogen doesn't quantum tunnel, period. So it's that could be the reason why it's so pervasive, has such an effect, not like Robert said on the mitochondria, but every mechanism, every biophysical point that it can have an impact, it does. And when we reduce it, we get the benefit of more energy, more ATP production, better utilization of oxygen. Everything just gets optimized. The body's trying to keep it out, and you willfully participate in that endeavor, it becomes a net benefit.
That was awesome. Yeah, quantum tunneling's a wild rabbit hole. If we could quantum tunnel, we'd be able to walk through a solid wall. right?
That's right. That's right. To get to the other side, but you would have to. But there is a caveat to that. It's purely from necessity. Like if you actually need to be on the other side of the wall, maybe you can figure it out. But if you're doing it for fun, I mean, you need.
That's great.
What do you think about? I think one of the things that we don't really spend enough time with is to tell our audiences what's it like, and should they make the decision to embark upon a deuterium depletion program? You know, it's there's a lot to it, and it's like no other biohack, perhaps.
It really isn't, because everything else is about putting something in. Right? Take this, drink that.
Yep.
Inject, drip this into your vein. Do that. This is, hey, take this out. Right? Reduce this. Less is more. Reduce it. Reduce this burden, because if you put regular water and light water on the scale, you'll notice that there's a slight difference. It actually is, because the deuterium is not there. It actually is lighter physically. So, and that's what happens to you. That's what happens in your body, and even say after doing this lifestyle for a couple of years now, in your consciousness, that everything just gets lighter, and you just reach an optimized state. Yeah, that's the way I've experienced it. Because I feel the same I did at my best. So whatever I can remember, whatever reference point I have for when I felt my best, or whether that's just best in terms of performance or just feeling good, or recovery from injury, I just feel like I'm at my best, and I know that it's from deuterium depletion, because it's really the ultimate cheat. The water that we create doesn't exist in nature. We actually we recommend you drink it diluted to amount that may exist in nature. Just do it naturally, and then when you reach this level, which is usually about 15 to 20% lower than what normal water is that people drink, with some exception, and you maintain that for a time, there's no denying you get the benefit. And the proof is the proof is you experience the proof. There's other proof, but none as good as when you feel it for yourself.
Yeah, I started with there's companies out there selling like 50 parts per million, 25 parts per million, and I understand tap water is on average 150 parts per million deuterium. And what's cool about light water is you guys are offering 5 and 10 ppm, which is more affordable because water is expensive to ship, right? And so you guys say to dilute it.
There you go. That's really the main. You can deplete on any of those waters, but light water does enable the consumer to have it at the most economical way, because you can not only determine the dilution yourself, but you don't have to ship so much, and that's a big deal. So
yeah, you can dilute it. You can dilute our water 4 times, still get a benefit.
Yep.
Excellent benefit.
Yep.
If you dilute it 4 times, you get to the level of the rarest waters on the planet.
Yeah. So I think 4 times is like 122 parts per million, Matt.
If you're starting with 150. Some places have, like where you're in Idaho, I would say your water is between 135 and 140.
I actually sent it in, Victor. I got it tested.
Did you? Man?
Yeah, it was. I believe it was.
No, it's not that low.
It was 131.
131.
What?
Yeah, Idaho is unique. It's got some nice low deuterium zone. 131 is exceptional, man.
Because
I see. I see you
it was just
smiling
on
there.
the river. Isn't it? I thought Sandpoint was, I don't know, it had a mixture of doesn't it have access to the ocean and Columbia
Oh
River and
no,
all
no,
that?
no, no, no. It's so inland. Yeah.
I
And I'm
see.
And that's
Okay.
the,
and I'm
Well,
and that's the that's the secret.
I'm super north too. I'm nowhere near Boise. You know, I'm almost to Canada, and so I think we get a lot of snow melt and
I
stuff.
see. Yeah.
You're near
Okay.
Bonner's Ferry. You're near Bonner's Ferry.
Hmm.
So Matt, it really, wait, you guys are throwing those numbers around. It really is.
I just pulled up the test, Robert. So this is from Quicksilver, deuteriumtest.com.
That's
My
Yes.
our
water
lab.
Yes.
That's
here.
our lab. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Let me see. The water. Oh, maybe I was off. Matt says Matthew Blackburn water. It's almost a 140, so like 138. Maybe I was confusing it. My
What
deuterium
did I
levels
say?
were
135.
132.
That's more.
Yeah.
That's more
Well, yeah,
believable.
130. I said 135 to 140. But if you had
That's
131,
spot on.
I would have believed it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I study these things. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. That's great. It's great. You just got to get it. Yeah, you're on a well or
It's
going
actually
on there with the water supply.
it's a spring. Yeah, my first Idaho house when I got here was on a well, and there was a ton of iron in it. But this house is actually spring fed.
Heavy, yeah.
Mm.
On your property, or is it just a community thing?
On my
You have a
property.
community spring for the
Mhm.
neighborhood, or yeah?
Just for me.
Oh, nice.
Right.
What's the total? What's the particulates? What's the TDS there?
Last time I measured it, it's been months, but I believe it was like 28 to 30 in that range.
It's exceptional. It's great.
So it's really low. I mean, that's like nice bottled water, quality water. So, but there really is no. I at least I don't think there is any measure that if you don't meet a certain threshold of deuterium in most of the water you consume a day, then what the question is, what is its long-term benefit in life? And I don't think anybody's proven that there is any benefit or there's any situation that would give us an indicator if there is any benefit. So if you drink 140 part per million water instead of 150, good, go for it. If you have a choice, just do it on faith. But it's not going to have big. It's not going to have big gains for all the health indicators, in my opinion.
Over time, it will have more because this is a cumulative thing. So if your cousin down in LA is been drinking 150 ppm, you've been living up there. You go down there once in a while, but mostly you drink 135. That little delta, you'll be able to, over time, they will be physiologically, you're going to have, this is a theory, but you'll have more energy, more mitochondria than your cousin that started out the same because this is a small delta does go a long way, and it's really dependent on the smaller the delta, the longer the time you need to see the difference.
And some people
And
have
it
actually.
may be
Sorry, go ahead, Robert.
it may work out really well. Like if you had natural spring water on your property that was 140 parts per million, it would be a good opportunity to start your children on it.
Yeah, I mean, you really have a big advantage there because you're just you look at it as purely on the equation of energy, and you're saving more energy. It's like the solar panels of your house are more efficient than your neighbors. It's that kind of thing. They both look the same. It's both it's water versus water, but when you look at it over time, because your water is lower in deuterium, you're in a lot better. You're the biomarkers of longevity are in your favor.
Mm.
So, but that's awesome that you got that in your backyard.
Yeah, I think I've heard Robert say in an interview, like if you have a glass of wine, then you'll take a shot of 5 ppm deuterium or 10 or whatever. And my question for you is, there have been athletes that have just drank it straight, right? And you could. It's just kind of
Yeah,
unnatural.
people drink
It's
it
that.
straight. I mean, it's not that it's unnatural. It's a temporary. It's temporary, and really the important thing here is slow and steady wins the race. So it's really about maintaining a lifestyle, and yeah, like that's what the 5 ppm is for. It's for those times where you want just a little more edge. Why? Because it will um, lower you a small amount, and you may or may not feel it, but that's what it does because you're giving yourself um, let's say like you know half a liter of 5 ppm, so that you drink it. So now the next time you go to the bathroom to pee, through hydrogen exchange, you're going to get out a little bit of deuterium. We haven't quantified how much that is yet, but you're going to have like a quick reaction. So if you like, for me, if I went out with my friends, drank some beers, ate a bunch of crap, I'll drink in the morning. I'll drink 5 ppm, or it could be 10. Drink it straight, and that kind of undoes the damage of deuterium you just put in. So it's a very it's just for maintenance, right? So you have to look at it like this. This is a lifestyle, and everything out there in nature is trying to put deuterium in. And through your intelligence and ability, knowledge, and access to water and other lifestyle modifications that inform you of lowering this deuterium, we're fighting from this from the day we're born. It's just, and I think what I believe is that when humans evolved 100+ thousand years ago, we had about 15 to 20% less deuterium on the planet. So we have these mechanisms that maintain our mitochondria, keep this stuff out, keep us in equilibrium. But because amount of deuterium on our planet went up through some event, cataclysmic, who the heck knows, and the unnatural diet that we've been subjected to, now it's multi-generational, where when you concentrate something, you increase the deuterium. So people are walking around with deuterium levels that are higher than you even find in nature. So there's unnatural forces afoot, and but we have, and this is at the same time we have these incredible interventions, like figuring out how to lower deuterium in our bodies. So this is something that, if you are going to do it, learn about it, get motivated, because this is something you want to do for the rest of your life.
And also, grain-fed animal products, milk, meat, etc., also limit and impair your ability to deplete deuterium.
Good point, Robert. There was a study just published. You got the front cover, Dr. Laszlo Boros, on this
Yes.
specific topic, where he's saying, look, the animal feed that you're feeding these animals is way higher in deuterium, and how does that affect everybody up chain of that, up the food chain that's consuming this? So it's creating chronic. It's something that one would easily miss, but it's creating a health crisis. Like glyphosate created a health crisis. It still is. So we do have a deuterium health crisis because of the unnatural ways in which we forced to live through the food consumption, or at least most of it.
That's a good point. I study most intensely mineral dysregulation and mineral balance. That's a lot of the shows that I have on my podcast. Chronic magnesium deficiency, iron overload, different things like that. This just seems like another layer to it. Like, this is, to me, like a deeper layer, not more important layer, but just a different layer from mineral imbalance.
Deuterium is the number one natural toxin. It's it's arguably the most detrimental toxin, especially in the long term, but it's also completely natural from the beginning of the universe. So, yeah, this is a. Now, when it comes to minerals, I found something very interesting. Uh, how deuterium plays into that, like especially I was looking at organic germanium, citrate, and other mineral complexes, and then you see some of them are stereoisomers, right? So they're beautiful because they're like a mirror, they're like a butterfly, like a mirror on each side. These molecules, molecules they usually have some kind of metal, in this case germanium. So and there's a lot of hydrogens there. Now, if you have a stereoisomer, and it has to be a stereoisomer in order for it to work properly. But what if one hydrogen on one side, that mirror molecule, is hydrogen, and the other side, it's a deuterium. Deuterium is like, hey, I'm hydrogen too. No, you're not. Get out of here. But so because it's heavier, it disrupts the shape of that stereoisomer, just like it would disrupt the shape of DNA if it's taking the place of a hydrogen. So it distorts, warps, misshapes because it's trying to fill in the hole as a hydrogen, but it's actually twice the mass. So it's not supposed to be there. It's like sending a fifth grader to first grade. It's like, get out of here, Too big, too big for this. So that's what's going on.
That's fascinating. Yeah, I've been trying to find the connection with iron overload and deuterium. I feel like there's a connection there. Just haven't been able to find it.
Interesting. I don't see it right.
Well, it's deuterium, or the reduction of deuterium, or the opposite. But the subject of deuterium depletion is very much connected and tied in, intertwined with the role of oxygen, because as ATP is produced, the byproduct is metabolic water. So oxygen, and so it's about the efficiency of the utilization of oxygen. So the less deuterium you have, the better you can utilize oxygen. In fact, the studies that were done in Russia by our colleague showed that after 30 days of deuterium depletion, they found that the body on average needed about half the amount of oxygen to perform the same amount of work. If we can validate that here, that's incredible. But they did it with two different groups. They had a great control group. They did it with athletes, and they did it with regular people. And they found the same exact thing both. So even it was across the board. When you decrease deuterium, your ability to utilize oxygen improved and increased. And this is, I theorize, why the Sherpas can climb to the summit of Everest without supplemental oxygen. And those people coming from the West, no matter how trained they are, no matter how prepared they are, because they're not deuterium depleted like the Sherpas, the water at the base camp of Mount Everest is in the upper 120s. There's no comparison. People live there, so you need really to acclimate there for 3 to 6 months, and then you could climb to the summit without oxygen because you've lowered your deuterium. So the lower the deuterium, the better the oxygen utilization, which would regulate the hemoglobin and the excess iron potential.
Wow, that's fascinating. Well, I'm doing an experiment with my 2 cats here, where a frequent guest on my podcast, he made a good point. He said pet food lowers the lifespan of dogs and cats, your household animals, which I think is for sure. But I think the water is more important,
well, it's
right?
loaded. That's what I mean when we say concentrated. That's what we mean. Look at that. It's just loaded. It's triple loaded because the feed that was fed to the animal was so it's compounding up the food chain, where now you've got more deuterium in food than you would ever find naturally. It's very dangerous because it's like playing with fire. We don't understand what we're doing in that regard. So that's another good argument for eat things that are not processed, natural. An animal, a cat, give them raw meat. There's nothing they want more. They don't want the kibble. Dry
Well,
food. They want just raw meat.
up here in Idaho, they find mice and stuff and have a ball, eating the organs, so they get their supplement.
Yeah, they protein supplement. Yeah, because you're not feeding them well enough. They got to
Yeah, I love it. Well, yeah. So seeing where we can go from here. So, I mean, people probably ask like, why is the deuterium this high? And you kind of referred to that a little bit ago, Victor, saying you don't know if it was an event that blew or an asteroid. Nobody really knows, but at some point in Earth's history, something introduced a load of deuterium, right?
Yeah, I can wax poetic about it for hours as to the
Yeah.
theories of
I mean,
what
there's
exactly happened.
every theory known for why it's reserved for
But
Earth and these inner planets. Uh, there's actually an amazing. You wouldn't find it looking for deuterium, but there's on Netflix. There's an amazing series called it's like the creation of the solar system, and it deals admirably with the deuterium issue. So, if you search, check it out, and
you
it
know
explains.
yeah, it's fascinating.
There's probably like 4 or 5 theories why we have a higher concentration in these in certain parts of the solar system and
And
deuterium.
what's unique is that Antarctica, the water is locked in from what it was like 80 million years ago, and it's 89 parts per million. And at that time, you had these 3-story ferns, 15-story dinosaurs, I'm guessing. So you had less deuterium on the planet. Obviously, the magnetic field was different. There was a different atmospheric pressure as well. But there was significantly less deuterium. And if you look in nature, you see that the largest mammal is the blue whale. It's also the longest living mammal. And what does it do? It hangs out there in Antarctica, drinking that glacial runoff, getting deuterium depleted. So there's a scientist that was originally the one that probably could be credited as one of the ones that discovered this phenomenon of light water, depleted water. His name was Berdyshev in Siberia. He's the one that he was a young gerontologist. His friend, a biophysicist, was saying, "Hey, help me on this project." And it's like the project was why are all these people in Siberia? Why do they have at that time 324 centenarians per 1 million, and in the rest of the Soviet republics there was I think it was like 10. Okay, it's like, oh my God, why are these people living so much longer? Forget the fact that their lifestyle is basically like Eskimo, right? This is Siberia. They're all living longer, and then they got some money to drill the cores of the water. They figure it must be the water they're drinking. They don't know what it is about the water. It can't be anything else. It's got to be water. So they drill down to the cores and they do all these tests on it. And at that time, deuterium was new and exciting. This was the late 50s, and deuterium only discovered less than 20 years ago. So they're like testing the water for deuterium, and sure enough, they found that these people were drinking water had 16% less deuterium than everywhere else. Like, oh my God, this is it. And this is what started all of this. And they published in 61, and then it was published in Nature in English in 66. That this difference between water that was lighter in deuterium and normal water, and the longevity possibilities. So now later in life, this guy Berdyshev, he published a book, and in that book, he said a lot of the nature cycles also are dependent on deuterium, and I'll give an example. Birds migrating, like birds migrating from Canada down to Florida or wherever they go, the tropics, sun and nice weather, and then they fly back to Canada, thousands of miles. That's a lot of energy to expend. Why do they do that? Because they're going to an area has less deuterium. So biologically, even though the distance and calories that they burn to get back up there is worth it, because they're in an environment where their young has a higher chance of survivability and a better chance of maturity than in the tropics where there's higher deuterium. So in this innate intelligence of nature, these migrations of animals are doing these things because it's a game of lower deuterium. It's fascinating. I mean, he started figuring this stuff out. And for example, you got a camel. Camel's not different, not too much different than a horse, but it lives twice as long. Why? Because it makes its own water from its fat, and fat is deuterium depleted. Like, we can only produce about 20% of the water that we recycle about 20% of the water. That's why we constantly need new water. And if you do a water fast, meaning a dry fast with no water, you'll find that your body burns fat cells to produce metabolic water, which is essentially what the camel is doing. And when you do that, you produce deuterium depleted water. So it's a deuterium depletion strategy that this camel has, and that's why they live twice as long as their cousin. And so you see it when you start looking at it. You see this in many places in nature. You even see it in plants. You see the roots are higher in deuterium than the upper canopy and leaves. Same thing in vegetables. So as soon as you clue into this, you figure out, or you start understanding the simplicity of, hey, this is heavier, this is lighter. How does that apply to me and everything else around you? Because as we started this podcast with, we're 98.8% water.
That's incredible. And you don't necessarily have to be on a ketogenic diet or any diet to deplete your deuterium. That's why you guys have light water, right? You think that this is the easiest, most effective.
You could do it.
Mm-hmm.
This really is like, it's almost like cheating, because to deplete deuterium, first of all, you couldn't get too low without it, but you can do very well. Another thing that another aspect of a modern lifestyle that increases people's deuterium unnaturally is eating too much, too many meals a day. You just can't snack. Body's not used to that much food. The more food you put in, the more deuterium you introduce, right? So if you constantly keep putting it in, what's going to happen. So but this is the best way to cheat. And in this regard, we're very fortunate, standing on the shoulders of giants that have created technology that allows this to happen, because this is not something you can do at home or Robert will tell you, one of the founders of reverse osmosis technology. Probably nobody knows more about water technology than Robert. He'll tell you there's no process out there that exists in filtration, whether it's home or commercial, that normal technology, known industrial or home technology, that will remove deuterium from water, because you're trying to remove water from water and not D2O. You're removing H2O from H2O. They're so similar. So it's very difficult to reduce it. But now that we can, this is something that is a future promise for everybody, because it's a simple intervention that does the work for you. So
Is the process like distillation hundreds of times? I know on your website you have a good FAQ, and it's
like a distillation rectification. So you got to get everything just right, because you have about a half a degree of difference to grab it, to separate the two, and that's an incredible challenge. That's fine technology, properly engineered, maintained, and dialed in. And there's nobody better than the Russians in distillation. That's why this was created in Russia. They have, just like we have an innate, Americans have an innate. Nobody. Let's see, what would be the comparison? The problem is that in the United States, if you have your own still, if you want to tinker with distillation, alcohol distillation, that's a felony. In Russia, it's encouraged. It's a pastime. So people grow up from a very young age where grandpa tells them everything, all of his tricks in distillation. Everybody's encouraged to have home distillation and learn it. But here it's a felony. So it's a slightly different, come up slightly differently. maybe you're like, so.
Yeah. Anything to add to that, Robert?
What topic yeah, I'm getting calls frequently.
No, I was saying, well, what I said earlier, Robert, I don't know, you didn't hear me, I guess. I said, there's nobody who knows water technology on this planet, arguably, than Robert. And he'll tell you that it's very hard to separate water from water.
No kidding. I mean, it's probably the most difficult separation challenge there is.
It is,
And
even the way
most
it's,
cumbersome and expensive. And I mean, there will be some breakthrough some point, whatever, some kind of laser sonoluminescence contraption that is able to do it. But there's nothing I've seen on the horizon.
Yeah, we're still in very early stages. The technology that exists is amazing, but somebody will have to invent the light bulb.
One topic we three ET geeks have overlooked is that of all things, deuterium seems to have been mentioned by ETs more than any other element or physical thing.
Yes, it was part warning and part condolences, actually.
Yes, I mean, it's fascinating. What you picked deuterium?
You sorry suckers. Poor things. We're so sorry. We're so sorry for you. Well,
and this wasn't
the technology.
This wasn't channeled material, right? This was an actual account of a contact experience.
Well, there's two.
No,
there's two accounts.
One was channeled.
Well, there's two accounts. There's two accounts. Obviously, Billy Meyer claims to have physical contact with them, and Wes Bateman claimed to have telepathic communication, so real-time communication. Just they didn't a phone call basically. It was a Zoom meeting. He was on Zoom with these guys for years. That's basically what he claimed, and he actually influenced Star Trek. He created the term warp drive. He gave that to Gene Roddenberry. So this guy was a contactee, and then he when that happened, he dropped his life and dedicated to the event that had occurred and sharing things that he had encountered and having telepathic communication. And in that telepathic communication, his book, which book is that? He's got a few. In his book, chapter 14, Robert, the name of the book escapes me right now. It'll come back to me. Wes Bateman's book.
Wes Bateman, Knowledge from the Stars.
Knowledge from the Stars. It's chapter 18, yeah. It's a lovely exchange where Wes Bateman says, "Hey, how old are you?" Like, "Well, I'm like 900. Hey, why do you look like you're really young?" He's like, "Well, we even live much longer, depending on our evolution and spiritual development." He's like, "What about us? We can't even hit 120." He's like, "Oh, yeah. Problem with that is, I hate to tell you the bad news, but you got something in your planet. You got too much deuterium.
Gumming up the works."
He's like, "What? Yeah, deuterium, look it up." So he looked it up and whoa. So this has been a 70-year journey, and it wasn't until 2007 that the actual mechanism was published by which how deuterium damages the mitochondria. Before it was known that it did, we just didn't know how, like the ATP synthase nanomotor. So this was fairly recent in our history, 2007, Dr. Mitolife. And before that, a lot of scientists got it. They're like, okay, so it makes a lot of sense. Deuterium hinders biology, and the lowering of it gives biology more of a chance, more energy. Right? Everybody, can we all agree? Yes, we got to agree. But nobody could do anything about it. They just put it on the shelf. It's like, what are we going to do about it? Well, nothing, because at that time, in the 90s, a liter of deuterium depleted water was like probably $2,000. So, but we're, like some, it took a lot of risk and a desire and a passion to even want to figure out how to produce this stuff on a commercial scale. It's like almost madness in a sense, but you have to fully recognize that what you have is a new standard of purity. That's what this is. This is a new standard of purity. Eventually, everybody will have to catch up to it. I don't know how. It's going to be difficult. But this is the new standard of purity for water quality.
Yeah, I hope there's a home unit in our lifetime. I'd love to give it to my animals, my goats, my chickens. Like, I can't imagine what products they would produce.
I know somebody, we know somebody working on one. Like he
Wow.
loves it so much, he's working on one if he can. And it's very difficult. And when he's done, he can get down to about 120 right now, or in the mid 120s. But the problem is that the energy that's needed. That's the issue. Is the energy. This is a energy intensive process. And where we produce it, we have very affordable natural gas. We run a factory on natural gas. So that's if you do this electric, it's not going to work. I mean, you can for a homestead, you just have a couple acres of solar panel just for your DDW columns. Yeah, you're homesteading on Mars now.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, I think that there are people with like
but until that time.
Well, I mean, I don't think we should overlook the fact that you can make gains toward your health with just modification of the diet. You know what I mean? More fats, keto, fasting, red light, and I think you probably can get down if you had regular 150 ppm water. I'm guessing, and maybe Vic should chime in. I'm guessing you probably, if you're totally diligent, you probably can make it to 130 to 135.
Robert's correct. Exactly. Well, with 130, it would be very difficult. I would say in the upper 130s. But yeah, it's possible. But you would have to be doing everything. I mean,
Everything.
Yeah, everything. It's a yogi lifestyle. You'd be you're like a yogi.
Precisely.
Put on the loincloth and get to work.
Are there anything
But
other than those
like,
things? Are there things other than those things that Robert mentioned, like keto, fasting, and red light, like that we found that increases our innate ability to deplete deuterium?
Sauna, sweating. Sweating.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also don't forget and limiting your normal fluids, okay? Because they're all deuterium. I mean, if you should do one thing, it would be those habits, and your beverage should be as deuterium depleted as whatever.
Arguably, one can say that people overconsume water. They're just obsessed. Like they told you have to drink a gallon of water a day. It's insane.
Yes.
You drink when you're you eat when you're hungry, drink when you're dry. So the body tells you when you're thirsty. You don't have to go, oh, I don't want to feel thirsty. So we are, what I do is I combine my water with fats. I drink tea and put raw milk in it. So I'm getting my fat rich and deuterium depleted water all together.
And you make your own ghee, Victor.
Wait, where's the fat?
I do.
With ghee?
No, by adding milk to water. It's a Russian thing.
Got it.
I've been really into ozonated
Russian, but it works.
water, like ozonating cold water. And I use it as just a mouth cleaner throughout the day. Because it's just amazing for your teeth and gums.
You know what I do is I bubble the DDW through Brown's gas for about half an hour. Then I put it on the vortexer and get a nice little vortex going for a little bit, and then I add a little methylene blue and some other some other little secret drops of stuff in there, and that's my mitochondrial elixir
That's awesome.
process.
Yeah.
It's a little process, but the vortex, you know, it's you got to have that spin it.
Yeah, I know you guys work with.
Yeah,
Oh,
but
sorry, go ahead, Victor. Mm-hmm.
you know, I was going to say just hydrogen, oxygen, all these things. You know, it's so funny. We just get back to the basics. You know, water, which is H2O, and that's all you want, not any other D components. And then when you break that H2O, you get the other two most important things. You know, hydrogen and oxygen. That's like the trinity of 90% of the things you need to take serious in your health, whether it's increasing your oxygen or taking hydrogen supplements, lowering your deuterium. You're just talking about H and O and its combination. It's so elegant, it's so simple, and it's so foundational that it makes everything else downstream.
Mm-hmm. I know I'm opening up a can of worms here, but I like that you guys like Kintone, been doing a lot of hypertonic and the hydrogen tablets. So I feel like those are really helpful, especially for travel. Like if I ever go out of state from my sanctuary that I've created here, those kind of keep me protected and energized.
Robert's been looking out for everybody from the beginning. He was the first to import Kintone. He developed the hydrogen tablets, and then we started the therapeutic water, light water. So yeah, Robert, you've been.
I really can't believe that hydrogen. I can't believe that molecular hydrogen, to be honest with you, has taken such serious, significant clinical roles in virtually every area of physiology and healing. I mean, wow. It was the find. And I often wonder, is it because the first atmosphere of life was hydrogen rich, you know, and we had an enzyme, hydrogenase, to do that conversion that we normally do with oxidation. So, you know, we're really kind of started out as hydrogen beings, and a life, and evolved life was definitely started in a hydrogen atmosphere. And as far as the minerals, it's the most difficult thing to teach people is to get them to embrace the idea that your species evolved in something that's a solution of the periodic table, and when your species left the ocean, it's the intent was that you would continue this input of minerals and trace elements, the periodic table from your food, and it's not in the food. So you have to have something. And we're realizing, actually, this has been like a recent epiphany, even though I brought Kintone to the United States like 17 years ago, that there aren't many Kintones out there. There aren't many things that are untampered, that maintain your evolutionary exposure to the periodic table. It's perfect, it has to be perfectly balanced. And people just mix things together. They mix concentrated seawater, they mix this concentrated. And while it doesn't, it's not like totally meaningless or a bad thing, it just doesn't hit the sweet spot of having that balance that you evolved in. But doctors are it's hard to get them going, and we're actually in this new thing with reinventing Kintone to revive, because it's been around for 124 years, and we need to. And it has the most boring box that there is.
What's the difference between
but
hypertonic?
Though, that those.
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Vic.
Okay, so hypertonic is exactly as it's harvested from the plankton bloom, okay, which is a rich area in phyto and zooplankton. I mean, that's really kind of what makes the Kintone, okay? The interaction of those two with the sea is the magic. And then because the sea has over billions of years become more concentrated for geophysical reasons, to get a medically usable form of ketone, they had to dilute it to the concentration of your blood plasma. And that's what isotonic is. So the isotonic is medically the more I'm going out on a limb here. Isotonic is medically more relevant, more effective. And we call it whatever. You could loosely call it the medicine, and hypertonic is the nutrient. So if you come down with like something tomorrow, or somebody in the audience comes down with something, you really go right to isotonic, because that's what you evolved in. Go ahead. Then when you go ahead.
I say, is that because of the isotonic acts on a more intercellular nature?
Exactly. Exactly. It's like right there. The identity is flawless. And as you know, Victor, you can just IV isotonic right into the body. Not that the FDA sanctions that or likes that, but
that's in fact what they've been doing for over 100 years.
Of course. I mean,
saving
that's
lives like that.
I've done it at least 20 times.
Yeah, it's great. Either way, that little ampule looks like jewelry, when you get it. It's got that sacred primordial fluid inside.
Yeah,
Mineralization. That's profound. What Renee Quintone said, like that Robert just quoted, that in order for life that was born in the ocean, sea, in order for life to succeed on land, it had to take the ocean with it. And we're water apes, right? What's our evolution? We're basically a water ape, aquatic mammal, semi-aquatic mammal.
Yeah, it always blows my mind when generally it's older people chronologically that are on a salt-free kick, and I'm like, salt is pretty essential, right? Like, why are you salt-free?
Well, they're salt-free because for a long time they've been eating the wrong salt. It's just pure sodium chloride and not complex.
It's when sodium chloride is just delivered in its pure state to somebody, whether it's mined or made in a laboratory, etc. It will result in some percentage of people in hypertension. But when you put it in its environment of the rest of the periodic table, virtually all studies show it either tames hypertension or doesn't create it. That's very important. And the person who actually brought that to our attention was the man who founded, and he was a student, so to speak, of Rene Quintone, and that was Jacques Delangre, who is the founder of Celtic sea salt. And he wanted to, Jacques Delangre wrote the early articles on Rene Quintone here in the United States, and said, you know what, this was, oh my God, this was 50 years ago, and he realized that Quintone Laboratories, this little tiny speck of a pharmaceutical company, could never make enough for everybody. Okay, 50 years ago, didn't even have a chance. So he thought, next best thing, let me try to make a sea salt in which I use special methods to retain as much balance in the regular ocean of the elements of the periodic table as possible. That was his goal. And it was he who was first announced that when you have the whole periodic table, you do not induce hypertension in the average individual. So, the medical world has it completely wrong, which is not unusual.
Wow. I had listeners send in questions. You guys want to answer those? Robert, are you still okay on time?
I'm okay. I'm okay actually until 3. They told me.
Oh, great. What are your thoughts on primary water?
Great question. And I believe that primary water is not just one thing. It can be like, it's like asking what is artesian water, okay? And the only thing that's common about artesian waters is that they come to the surface on their own, under their own pressure, okay? That's artesian water. Well, and there's 1,000 different formulas or analyses for artesian water, and the same thing for primary water. It's certainly not one just thing, and I think here's what could be true about primary water. It has unique energetic imprints, like from the fields of the core of the earth, things like that, okay? The vibration of the earth, the subtle energies. I don't know, it's above everybody's pay grade to really do anything more than conjecture. And the other thing is, I would expect generally it to be free of human environmental contamination. Okay, you're not gonna have glyphosate in primary water. Other than that, I haven't seen. I think, Victor, we have tested maybe 2 primary waters sent to us, and they were the same level of deuterium.
It's hard to know what is or isn't primary water. I think the definition is water that is anomalous and that is outside of the hydrological cycle. So,
yeah. I mean, it's typically, primary water has to be in the miles or 100 miles deep as its source.
the oldest water in the world, which in Canada, somebody went down and got a sample really far, and this water is actually billions of years old. I emailed the professor that was doing the study. I never heard back, but I was very interested and curious to test the oldest water in the world, see what its deuterium level. Never got a reply. The University of Toronto.
But there's 3 things. I'm starting to teach this because I realize I have to keep simplifying the water, the water question, because people are just so lost when it comes to water. And I'm forever trying to simplify it, and like what are my criteria? Because people just call you up and say, "Hey, I live in the United States. What water purifier should I use?" It's like, oh, holy mackerel!
Where are you located?
I was like, what woman should I marry? Okay, so one, obviously, the highest criteria, it be free of all health related contaminants, and you can say a lot about that. Number 2 is that it be free or be influenced by the right subtle energies, of which science knows very little. Call it water structuring, call it quantum entanglement, resonance, etc. All those things, we really don't know a lot about it. It's like for the future science. And then the third thing that is most overlooked by everybody is the mineralization part, the minerals and trace elements. The drinking water is just one of the great places to get minerals and trace elements in the right proportion. And most bottled water doesn't have the right proportion. People don't even think about it. People don't go buy a $15 bottle of Mountain Valley and ask what are the minerals that are in it. And Mountain Valley, really interesting, has a really crappy range of minerals in it. Okay, I mean, it's not great. And it doesn't matter. I mean, just the fact that it's pure water, which it is, and nice source, probably great energy. it works. But if you had Mountain Valley, the first thing I would do to my Mountain Valley would be to add minerals and trace elements from seawater. That would be the pièce de résistance for your drinking water. Then you got it all. No contaminants, good energy, good vibes, and the right minerals and trace elements.
We got a pretty good toolkit.
We got a
Yeah.
toolkit.
Yeah.
This is a loaded one. Thoughts on Kangen water? It's just like electrocuted, right?
Oh, well,
Go back.
10,000 times a week I get that question. And it's not Kangen water, it's water it's called alkalized water. And it is simply water that has in the beginning, it had a distinctively high pH, let's say 9.5 to 11.5. That was so-called alkaline water, and you can go to Whole Foods and buy it from the machine and pay more and all that stuff. Well, I and Tyler LeBaron, whom I'm pretty sure you know, from Molecular Hydrogen Institute, he and I, almost at the same time, which is like over 6 years ago, we realized what a mistake. Not a mistake. It really doesn't matter what the pH of your water is, Matt, okay? Because your body is going to change that pH. And regular water, like you'd hook up from the only way to resist it changing the pH, if it has a high enough buffering, okay? And this has eluded doctors and eluded customers. What's buffering, you know? And so most tap water does not have enough buffering to stabilize the pH. So when you drink your Kangen water at a pH of 11, people think it goes throughout the body. It doesn't stay pH of 11 for a few seconds. And the guys who really introduced it, and I tell people, this was not a scam by somebody, okay? It made a lot of money for not delivering, but it really wasn't intended to be a scam. It's because the early people didn't understand buffering and alkalization. So the best thing you can do for your Kangen water is to just put a little tiny scoop of mineral powders in it, okay? Like, you know, you can just use baking soda, but there are little better things that include, you know, magnesium carbonate and sodium bicarbonate, et cetera, that will add that buffering to you. But still, you have to have buffering if you want pH to work for your body. Like your body you have a diet that's constantly making metabolic acid. So it's good to regulate that acidity, which you can look up how to measure your acidity by measuring your urine and saliva pH. There's tons written on that, and you need to maintain the right body pH, because your body is always fighting metabolic acid from its digestion and metabolic processes. So the Kangen water is just an overpriced, wishful thinking, and people are absolutely welcome to write you and get the most challenging questions they can, because I have answered this single question more than any other question in my whole water career.
That's great. I'm sure this is another common one too. Just to
Was I emphatic enough?
Yeah, that was awesome.
Well, Robert, wouldn't you say that there's some immediate when you have that home unit that's it's a basic ionization unit that you get it fresh real quick, you do get some hydrogen, right?
Oh, whoa. Okay, great point. And I'm guilty for not saying this. As the whole fad about alkaline water went on, it was doctors would tell me in a presentation, Robert, I have customers who swear by it. They feel better. And it ends up that these units, because they use electrolysis, also manufacture molecular hydrogen H2. And that's really the active ingredient that has physiological and health significance, the H2 part. They're not great at making H2. There's better ways than spending $4,000 to make some H2, but that is what the active ingredient is. And now, when you go on probably 90% of the alkaline ionizer websites, the big highlight is we make molecular hydrogen. Case closed.
Matt, most people with a healthy microbiome produce a couple liters of hydrogen.
Yep.
But if you don't have a good foundation of flora in your gut, you won't. And, so anytime we give ourselves hydrogen, it's like we bypass the whole reason of eating, because we essentially all food breaks down to that proton that gets shuffled through the electron transport chain, right? So we're just bypassing that, giving straight hydrogen to the body. It's like the most primary food source that our body needs. So now, if you read the work of Tyler Baron, there's a lot there, and molecular hydrogen, how long it takes to saturate. So all these, whether you put a magnesium tablet in the water to make hydrogen, or you inhale it, or wherever you get molecular hydrogen, there is a clear market benefit.
That's great. Can you just freeze and thaw your water to make deuterium depleted water? I think I've heard you guys talk about that. You can get it down like 1 or 2 ppm, right?
No, and I'll tell you. I'll tell you the story. That's at first when I first found out in 2004 about deuterium depleted water. I started doing that, and I had it all worked out because I put it in the freezer, and then I get it out right before while there's still a little layer on top, and I take that off, throw that out, put it in the freezer again, and do it like 5 to 10 times, and I felt really good about myself. And then years later, I found out, and there's actually a published study where they actually proved it. You're lucky if you get like half to one. You're all like 10, 20 times. So it was really just a fool's errand. And didn't realize that how hard this is until Robert and I went to Russia and saw how these guys figured it out. And wow, this is so I'm glad somebody did. Yeah, because it's something. It's fine technology to separate that out of water, and the you can put, but they're very, very gifted, talented, smart engineers that applied themselves toward this problem, and after a number of years and a lot of money, got a solution. This is what we're doing now. So it's pretty cool because we have a company that is we're providing water as a service, but we're also a technology that we're advancing the ability to create this water commercially and put it into the market. So for us, it's a pretty exciting time, and for people that get to enjoy it.
This is a tough one, I think. Does deuterium make us more susceptible to radiation?
Oh, there are studies that show there's mouse studies, and there's I think there's in Russia there's some human studies too. But the mouse study showed that it does have, being deuterium depleted has radioprotective benefits. That's clear. And there's more than one study. Romanian, I believe, and the first one, and then the Russians published on that as a radioprotective intervention for cosmonauts. And I think that anybody going up to space should prepare for that by being deuterium depleted, because it does have radioprotective benefits. So yeah, now people are talking about, there's a lot of forms of radiation. I think in this sense, they're talking about beta and gamma radiation, and not
Yeah,
necessarily 5G.
and radionuclides
Radio.
would be in that, but the other radio frequencies, like whatever 5G, I don't think anybody's done any studies on that.
Nothing quantum. Yeah, we don't know.
Yeah, I'd love it to be done.
Yeah. What got me excited about the molecular hydrogen tablets was that it neutralizes, what is it, peroxynitrite in the hydroxyl radical, I think. And I think it's
The
the
hydroxyl radical.
Yeah, it makes hydroxyl. Yeah, makes it in the water.
Pretty incredible.
It activates it. Yeah.
And the biggest feature of hydrogen is its mobility, really. I mean, that's what makes it so special. I mean, if you take any other antioxidant, glutathione, vitamin C, and so on, I mean, they get so intertwined and mixed with so many things and react, etc. But hydrogen just is everywhere all at once.
Hydrogen will tunnel and escape through glass, and it's got those quantum tunneling properties we discussed. So it's very unique, and then which brings us all back full circle to that there's more than one type of hydrogen. And now that we know that, we can take proper steps.
Yeah, I think I asked Robert this question on the phone. Is there a synergy between DDW and the molecular hydrogen tablets? And I think, Robert, you said it's going to be more protium, right? I mean, if is it a small difference?
No. I'm not sure what you meant by a synergism. What I said was, when you make when you use a hydrogen tablet, or when you use an ionizer, and when you use a bottle to make hydrogen, the deuterium's coming from the water you put into it. Okay? Even with the tablet's gathering the hydrogen molecule from the water itself. So if there's deuterium in there, you're going to get that amount of deuterium. So, a nice treat to yourself is to make your hydrogen beverages with deuterium depleted water. And you can ask Victor, because we actually do.
We do, and we do have a beverage. There's a beverage out, a partner in the marketplace puts out a fantastic beverage, which is a hydrogen beverage with nitric oxide. It's called HydroShot, and for us, it's made with our 100 ppm water. So it becomes truly a functional beverage. It's getting you hydrogen, nitric oxide through citrulline, and deuterium water. I put our light water into my hydrogen or Brown's gas machine. So when I'm using that, I like to breathe hydrogen, and so just use DDW in that way, like Robert said. More of the gas that you inhale is protium, or in our case, most of it, because we use our 5 ppm we just tested again, and the last batch was 3 ppm. So we really have a water that used to lab grade water that used to go for it's in the 80s or 90s, $2,000 a liter. Now we've got it down $20 a liter. So I'd say that's pretty good progress, which gives it, and then it comes down to like $4 a liter when you start diluting it down to 4 times. So there's a good long-term benefit there for the energy, because it's about net energy gain. So when you as as somebody that's quite interested in optimizing human health, I'd like to ask you a question. What else can you think of that at the end gives you a net energy benefit? A real net energy benefit, because everything else is at the very end, right? At the very end of the reaction, what ultimately gives you net energy benefit? And I don't think there's anything besides deuterium depletion and really a few specified spectrums of red light that act in an interesting way on the mitochondria as well. But yeah, so to get net energy benefit from things in nature, very little out there. So that's why this is very special.
I love it. Well, yeah, that was awesome. And you guys have a website, drinklightwater.com, and I have a little discount if you guys use it Blackburn. You save on your first purchase 10%. And yeah, thanks guys for your time. This was awesome.
You are
Thanks,
very
Matt.
welcome.
Great.
You're very welcome, and we always enjoy your company.
Yeah,
That was great to see you over the holidays.
Thanks,
that was
Matt.
awesome. Well, thanks guys. Stick around as I close out the show here.
Okay.
Okay.
That's all for today's show. Hope you guys enjoyed all of that technical detail. I thought the ET part was really fascinating. I thought it was really interesting when Victor said every 7 seconds the ATPase nanomotor is impinged upon. That's quite often. That's more than I expected with just a small amount of deuterium. Like they said, 6 drops of D2O in a glass of water. It's not a lot. And I think the same goes for excess calcium in the water that contributes to calcification and the magnesium deficiency, and just the constant influx of iron fortified foods and excess iron in the water. It's really a death by 1,000 cuts with our health. And this subject of deuterium is just one more thing to be aware of. I always get messages from people that have a sick cat or a dog, or I see that they're being put down. And I think a lot of that could be avoided, a lot of these diseases in our cats and dogs and pets, just by giving them deuterium depleted water. And it doesn't have to be what I do, 5 parts per million straight is all they drink. Even giving them 80 parts per million or 90 or 100, just a small drop can have massive effects in your pet's longevity and their overall health. Because unless you're feeding them a raw diet, which from what I've seen is a little easier to do with dogs than cats, and you have to be home all the time, or else they're only eating a few times a day, the pet food's garbage, and it's fortified with vitamin D, and as they said, deuterium. It's just loaded because the quality of the animals that are making up that pet food are generally not the highest. So to have them on a constant deuterium depletion program via their drinking water just makes a lot of sense to me. And my first experience was last summer drinking DDW, deuterium depleted water, and I combined it with methylene blue and sunlight, and I felt euphoric. It was a really unique feeling that I've never felt before. And maybe that quantum tunneling was a part of it that Victor mentioned, that protium is the biggest particle that quantum tunnels, and that deuterium doesn't quantum tunnel the same, or not at all. I found that whole area very interesting. If you're interested in diving into this topic more, I'll put the link below where you can check them out. It's drinklightwater.com. And I really like their FAQ section. It's a really great breakdown and summary of the whole subject of deuterium and deuterium depleted water. And they were generous enough to offer a discount code to you guys. It's a one-time use. If you use Blackburn, then you'll save 10% on your first order. I recommend trying it at least once. If you're sensitive to new things like I am, then you'll probably feel it. I definitely did. It was a hard to describe feeling, but I just felt like lighter, which makes sense. If you want to support the show and my work, you can go to matt-blackburn.com. And if you haven't been following me on social media, this might be a shock to you. So make sure that you're wearing brown pants right now. I put on the website cod liver oil. And yes, I used to be vehemently opposed to this substance, but all of the conversations that I've had with Morley on and off the air, he finally convinced me. It took 2 years, because that's when he introduced this substance to me, was 2 years ago when I first started having him on the show. And I was really resistant because of the polyunsaturated fats. And I've seen people's health get destroyed with algae oil, fish oil, these really concentrated omega-3 extracts. But I'm kind of taking a step back and taking a more nuanced and contextual perspective to polyunsaturated fats and omega-3s. And I see that what Morley says is correct. Putting those in a body with iron overload, that's the match. Iron is the initiator, the massive primary initiator of lipid peroxidation. But I take it further. I think vitamin E, that's well proven in the literature that vitamin E will be depleted with especially these extracts like high dose fish oil. If you're taking 50 grams a day of fish oil, which has been recommended by prominent bodybuilders and health influencers, you will no doubt create a severe vitamin E deficiency. But what I never looked into with cod liver oil is the amount of PUFA per vitamin A. And it turns out that it's actually less than egg yolks and butter. And more than that, cod liver oil, if it's, unfermented, which I'm against, and non-fortified, which I'm against, fortified cod liver oil, that's a lot of the brands out there. They strip it down and then they fortify it with synthetic A&D. That's definitely a problem. But something like what I put on the website, this brand out of Norway, it actually has a blend of saturated, monounsaturated, and polyunsaturated fat. So all of those points were things that I was not aware of when I was against cod liver oil. One, the PUFA per vitamin A content I wasn't aware of. And two, I didn't know that it actually contains MUFA, monounsaturated fat, and saturated fat. I thought it was just purely polyunsaturated fat. So that changes the substance. That makes it more balancing. And the retinol content of 3,900 international units of vitamin A per teaspoon of natural vitamin A from a whole food substance, that cannot be beat. And I've just been feeling lit up from this, and the people that I've got on it have been feeling really energized as well. And I think it's largely due to the retinol content, because that is what loads copper into ceruloplasmin, that Swiss Army knife that has over 20 functions and allows us to utilize oxygen better, clear exhaust in the mitochondria, fight pathogenic infections, but most importantly, make energy and be the chef for oxygen, to chop up oxygen and make more energy. That's really the name of the game for health. And that's why I bowed down to cod liver oil, because I realized that just because there's omega-3s in this, I can't demonize this really rich source of natural vitamin A. And I don't buy the vitamin A toxicity fear. I think fear comes from iron overload. Fe is how you spell fear, and that's iron. So I think a lot of the fear porn going around about this fat-soluble vitamin that has a lot of effects when it's broken down by sunlight into 13-cis-retinoic acid and all of its breakdown products that have a multitude of effects on your immune system and your skin and so many things. It's so critical. And when I think back to how I've lived up until this point, I wasn't getting much retinol the first 25 years of my life, and then I started eating some grass-fed butter and egg yolks, and just in the last couple years I've introduced liver, but I still feel like I was retinol deficient. And the tests are tricky because you actually need a liver biopsy because it's a fat-soluble vitamin stored in the liver. So I don't know how accurate the serum vitamin A tests are. I'm a really big fan of going by how you feel. I think that's not emphasized enough. We're really obsessed with labs and numbers, which can help, but they actually harm when you become overly obsessed with the numbers. And that's where a lot of people are. They're just changing numbers on a piece of paper on their lab test. And that's not healthy, in my opinion. The other aspect, too, is the vitamin D force feeding that's been forced upon humanity. And as it turns out, toxoferol, as it used to be called, cholecalciferol, quote, vitamin D3 supplements, tank your retinol levels, and potassium and magnesium and so many other nutrients. But the vitamin A and D work together with the receptors, with the VDR and the RXR, to support your immune system. So why do we have so many autoimmune issues going on? I think a lot of it is supplementing D3 and consuming products like fortified milk that has D3 in it. And I'm pretty sure I was raised on vitamin D fortified whatever milk, or my parents did their best, but it wasn't I wasn't raised on a farm. So I definitely got hit just like most of us did. And I think that context is so important. We can't just demonize a substance without looking at the whole picture and looking at the nuance of it and how all the dots connect. So that's my rant on cod liver oil. Check it out on my website. It's under shop, extra virgin cod liver oil. Highly recommend it. And how much, I'm not going to say because I'm not a doctor, but just once a day with meals is probably a good idea. And then if you're called to do more, then you can experiment with more. And Mitolife is my brand. That's mitolife.co. And right now we're out of Shilajit and the vitamin E. Those should be back for sure by the end of March. But for now, the vitamin K is in, the magnesium, dissolvidol, whole food vitamin C, niacinamide, probiotic digestive enzymes, dairy absorb. You can start with those if you haven't tried my products yet. And remember that vitamin E and vitamin K and A and D are the 4 fat-soluble vitamins. And it's my perspective that a lot of people are deficient in vitamin E from consuming a lot of canola oil cooked foods growing up, and really concentrated PUFA sources like fish oil that just deplete your body of vitamin E. And vitamin E is what sacrifices itself to stop the process of lipid peroxidation after it begins. So it's called a chain-breaking antioxidant. But it also counters estrogen, which helps with people experiencing different growths in the body. Estrogen is responsible for tumor growths and cysts and things like that. But E and K are often missing, and E is depleted with polyunsaturated fats, and vitamin K is depleted with calcification. So I get questions sometimes about hypercalcemia. A guy messaged me on social media yesterday about that, and I said magnesium and vitamin K2. Those are what manage and regulate calcium. So if you have calcification in your arteries, you're going to have a magnesium and a vitamin K2 deficiency. And a lot of people are using vitamin K2 for dental issues because it actually regulates the pH of the saliva and has a lot of effects that are very protective for your teeth and gums. But it also is critical for energy production. So it supports mitochondrial energy production, which is not well known, as vitamin K is a quinone. I always tell people just start somewhere. If you're overwhelmed, just start with any of the Mitolife products, and of course, make the necessary life changes with your light environment, your EMFs, your sleep, your relationships. It's obviously a whole thing. If you're dealing with a health condition or you just have fatigue, you want to take inventory of all the different aspects of your life and find your weakest links and start to slowly upgrade those. So that's it for today's show. There's a new one released every Friday. Stay supercharged.